Good afternoon and welcome to Wild Moments, brought to you by explore.org and on the Africam platform. Please excuse my hat. It is very cold here in Johannesburg, and my grandmother-in-law, not many people have those, made me this enormous beanie, which is probably more suited to sitting on a teapot, but is currently being used to warm my bald head here in the winters of Johannesburg. Also quite cold in Cape Town. We have got Trishala Naidu.
Hi everyone. I'm actually not
In a
cold. My
very,
bare head was just feeling very shy after seeing James's, amazing adornments. And mine also
yes,
has a story. A relative. So I was in Durban last time we were speaking to all of you. So a relative who is my mum's sister's husband's sister
my mum's
got
sister's
this for me.
husband's sister.
Yes.
Very
And
nice.
it was
Your
quite
mother's
random, but she gave it to me.
sister's husband's sister. Right.
Yes, there we go. And then look, it fits in perfectly. It matches James' hat just perfectly. Meant to
I
be.
think yours is far more elegant than mine. I'm just going to do one more thing and
I look
show
like a
you how
little elf.
versatile my hat is. I know. Not sure what I look like. Anyway,
A momo.
all right, everybody, we're going to dispense with that nonsense. I hope that you're all very well wherever you happen to be in the world. Please do interact with us during the course of this show. We're going to be taking a look at the highlights from the Africam live cameras throughout Southern Africa. South Africa, KwaZulu-Natal, the Northwest Province, Mpumalanga Province, Limpopo Province, and Gauteng, where we'll be looking at some black eaglies. Please send us any questions that you might like to on whatever platform you happen to be watching on. It would be lovely to have your questions and interactions. We have some greetings already from John, who is in sunny Florida. Well, John, I hope you're enjoying your summertime. Laura Mack, you're in Texas, also enjoying summer, no doubt. And Andy, you say greetings, fellow Earth inhabitants. Well, that's very nice of you, Andy. Are you greeting the 7 billion human souls on planet Earth, or in fact every living creature? Well done, Andy. Thank you for including everyone and leaving no doubt
Thanks, Andy.
as to their inclusion. Rolling Trouble, you say hello from Washington State, and great hat. Thank you, Pat, in Florida. I assume she's referring to yours, Trishala, because there was very little great about my hat. I am going to speak to my grandmother-in-law and see if she'd like to start a business called Brenda's Enormous Beanies. My cat's on. Okay, let us stop horsing about and be very serious as we take a look at our first clip. My wife is on controls in the room next door to where I'm sitting, and she will now play the first clip.
Oh, great
Now,
timing there.
great timing there. We've got the black eagles here in Western Johannesburg at the Walter Sisulu Botanical Gardens. That is a black eagle, and what you're watching there, rather distressingly, if you happen to be a human being, is what seems to be the youngest chick, now dead, being fed to the oldest chick, subsequent to its being killed by its older sibling in an act of obligate siblicide.
It's such a difficult thing to watch
Yes.
because, it speaks to some fundamental things as human beings, and especially in a nest where there's nurturing happening and at the same time there's this
Yeah.
conflict that's happening. It can be
Mm.
difficult to watch, and it's also difficult to understand, and it's difficult to explain as well.
It is difficult to understand, it's difficult to explain, and I suppose it's just because we happen to look at things from a very human perspective, which is unsurprising given that we are, in fact, humans. I do think that it's been interesting to note people's reactions. We certainly had some reactions from some people saying, well, how do you know it's the other chick? It could be a chicken. It might be some other kind of animal that is just very white. I'm not sure what exactly. Perhaps a very white cat, possible. But it's very unlikely. And I did a bit of research on it. And in fact, 90% of black eagle chicks will be killed. Second black eagle chicks will be killed by their older siblings. So yes, distasteful as it is, I'm afraid it does seem to be far more the norm.
Yeah, and if it wasn't beneficial in some way, it wouldn't be happening. So there's a
Yeah.
reason that it's happening. I mean, apart from the obvious, once a chick is dead, you obviously don't want to waste the nutrients that that chick is going to be able to provide its sibling. But why it happens in the first place can be confusing because ultimately, as you know, the meaning of life biologically is to make more of me, and it seems counterintuitive that one is. My biology teacher told me that in grade 10,
It's a good
and
one.
it's true.
Yeah.
Um, and it's counterintuitive because it's happening 90% of the time. But if it was not beneficial, it wouldn't be happening 90% of the
Yeah.
time.
Apparently, it's got a lot to do with the amount of food availability and the food specialization that black eagles exhibit. And as Gigi was saying, do only birds of prey chicks kill their siblings? Gigi, I know that skuas do it as well. I'm not sure about other species of birds. I think some owl species as well kill their siblings. But
Hornbills
what's
as well.
interesting is that hornbills. Oh, yeah,
Yes, some yes.
that's right, the ground hornbills. That's right.
Yep. And I think
Um,
shoe bulls. I think it's
yeah.
correlated, from what I read at least, it's correlated to the size of the animal at maturity. So the larger the animal at
Okay.
maturity and the longer investment, parental investment, the higher um, probability that they will be siblicide.
Okay. What's also interesting, though, is that in something like a golden eagle, where they have a much wider dietary uh, tolerance, so there's a lot more for them to eat, basically, where they live, they'll do it far less. And golden eagles will often raise three chicks at a time, whereas black eagles, there are records, very few records of Varro's eagles raising two chicks, but it has happened before, very seldom. But they are, of course, specialists in the rock hyrax. And they, in fact, almost only occur where the rock hyrax occurs. So, they are very specialized, and therefore they will not really want to try and raise two chicks. The difficulties finding enough food for them will be such that it becomes detrimental to both chicks if they try and raise both.
Yeah.
Kathy, you say bliach. From a human standpoint, that's gross and sad. Yes, the key there, Kathy, is your statement that it is from a human standpoint. Of course, we are not Varro's eagles. We are human
Mm.
beings, and we have created and evolved a set of moral and emotional standards that simply don't apply into other species, or most other species. Kathy, I said 90%, not 19. 90% of Varro's eagles will kill their siblings. Often, in that other 10%, it's not to say the other two will be raised, but in that 10%, in fact, only one hatches, or there'll only be one egg. Okay.
Yeah.
And John, I
Um,
think we have answered your question there. Why do black eagles lay more than one egg if the second chick is usually killed? It's an insurance policy, basically. So if there's something wrong with the first chick, then they've got a second.
and that second egg is also smaller. Um, so it doesn't take as much, at least as much effort to be able to produce it. I mean, effort from an energy
Okay.
perspective.
Right. I'm actually editing a video, not editing a video, writing a voiceover for a video at the moment where this does happen. The siblicide with the first clutch, and then a leopard eats the murderous first sibling, and they have to. The black eagles wait another year, breed again. The first chick hops out of the nest before the second one even hatches, and then they raise the second one, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Kathy, you say true, but your own baby. Again, Kathy, you're looking at it entirely from a human perspective. They don't see it like that. They're not looking at those chicks and thinking, my baby, in the same way that a human being looks at a chick and thinks, my baby. Anyway,
And
Laura
also, that's
MC,
a
I'm
whole
going to,
lot.
yeah.
Sorry, Jane.
No,
I
no,
was
you
just
carry
saying
on.
that it's essentially between the siblings, so that's just another competitor
Mm.
in its space. Somebody who's going to take its food and take its space, take its attention. So, just from the human perspective, I wouldn't eat my brother, but if he was eating all my food and we were evolved in that way, it might have to happen.
I think you should leave it there, Trish. I'm going to hand this question to you as well. It's from Laura Mack, and she says, hyenas do this too, don't they? There is a quite large difference.
Yeah. So with hyenas, it's been shown that they don't do that as much as we once thought. It's more likely that they will actually, if they are able to raise two cubs, they will raise two cubs. And the siblicide that has been recorded has been negligible in
Mm.
reality. The problem is that so much happens in the den where we can't see what's happening, right? So, two not chicks, two cubs may go in, one comes out, and then we assume that it's siblicide when that's not
Yeah.
always the case.
Whereas with these black eagles, we have seen it frequently.
Yeah.
They're very very tolerant of cameras around the nest, and we do see it often. So yeah, hyenas very different, and the key there is yes, it does happen from time to time, but it is not by any stretch of the imagination the very fancy termed obligate siblicide.
Definitely not.
I think we'll leave it there for now. Right, Kirsten, let us move on to the next clip. Now, what you're looking at there is a rather unusual animal. It is not a skunk. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, I've never seen one. It's a striped
I've
polecat, if
seen
you're wondering.
I've seen three altogether. I'll tell you about that just now. That is a striped polecat, as Trish has just said, everyone. It also has a rather strange other name, Zorilla.
I love that name.
Yeah, a Zorilla. Totally ridiculous name.
But
And
do
I've
you
now
know how that name came about, James?
forgotten. I was about to say I've forgotten. Tell us.
Because Zorro means fox in
That's right.
Spanish, I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
Spanish. That looks nothing like a fox.
No.
And for those of you who are wondering and saying to yourselves, that looks just like a skunk, you would not be incorrect. It is part of the same family. It is a mustelid, so it belongs to the same family as the skunks and the honey badgers, and I think the weasels even. And yes, it does make an incredibly foul stink that it sprays from an anal gland at potential predators. So it will actually turn around, lift its tail, face its foul anal gland at the potential enemy, and then squirt at their faces. And they will be left apparently very almost blinded for a couple of seconds, certainly with eyes watering, and no doubt a very foul odor in their noses.
Yes. I was just hoping, can we see that clip again? Because this is
Yes,
very special. I just wanted to have a
I
look again.
agree. I think it's quite difficult to get the size of that thing. It's about the size of a house cat, basically. Not much
Mhm.
bigger, maybe a little bit bigger than a house cat. And that coloration is a warning coloration. So potential predators know that if they go anywhere near there, they're going to get a face full of evil smelling anal effluent.
You can see it, like it moves around with the tail,
Yeah,
cocked.
almost challenging a potential predator.
Yes, it actually does have a very intimidating way
Mm,
about it.
it is, it's intimidating. I suppose if you're that obvious, you have to be. It's a bit like a
It's true.
badger. Yeah. Um, I've only seen them once, and they're supposed to occur just about everywhere I've worked. Perhaps not so much in the wetter regions, but I've seen one. In fact, the place I did see it is a pretty wet region, actually. I was at a wedding in a place called, or near a place called Matatiele, which is in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, or on the border between the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, a very high-lying area just below the Drakensberg Mountains. And on our way back, after wassailing deep into the night, we were leaving the wedding and we were going to our bed and breakfast. And in this case, just breakfast. There wasn't much bed. And we almost ran over a little family of 3 of these things, which then climbed under the car we were driving in. And eventually we coaxed them out and they ran off down the road. And it was a mother and 2 tiny little, what would you call them? Kits? No, I don't think you would call
I
it
would have
pups.
gone for kids as well, but I think
Yeah,
pups is
I think it's
probably
pups.
most correct.
Yeah, I think it's pups. So we had a mother striped polecat and 2 pups. And I think there were 3. I may have consumed sufficient scotch such that there was only 1, but I'm pretty sure that there were 3 because I think I'd have seen an even number if it had been the scotch. And they
And
thankfully
did
didn't
you?
spray at us.
Oh, I was just about to ask
Mm,
if they attempted
no.
or did at least any threat position or anything like that.
I mean, I seem to remember them just trotting off down the road, but again, in that kind of intimidating, um, almost nonchalant way. They didn't scuttle
Mhm.
away from the vehicle; they just trotted off down the road with their tails up. And I think rather like with aardvark, which in regions where there are a lot of predators are only seen at night, by nocturnal, we really mean nocturnal. A lot of the time when we say nocturnal, we mean kind of crepuscular. They're
Mhm.
active just after it gets dark. But I think with things like aardvark and zorilla, they really are nocturnal, and they'll be out well after dark, and they'll be back inside whatever bush or burrow they're lurking in long before the sun comes up. Right. A couple of
Very cool.
questions. Uh, Leela May 6. Will alligators go after elephants when they're close by drinking from the edge? I'm going to get back to you on that, Leela May. Let's just deal with the polecat for now. Jimmy J. Are they related to cats? Polecat. No, polecats are not related to cats. Well, I mean, they are, but they're not closely related. They're in a different family. The cats are in the family Felidae, and the dogs are in the family Canidae, and the mongooses are in the family Herpestidae, and these things are in a family called Mustelidae. So they're a different family of carnivore, but there are certainly carnivores. Sue from Ohio, I was wondering if the polecat was related to the skunk at all. So thank you for that answer. It is our pleasure, Sue. Kristen and Kathy, this is the second time we have seen polecat at Tembe. That's quite cool. Okay, so this was at Tembe in northern KwaZulu-Natal. I said that they normally don't occur in very wet areas. I think I'm talking garbage there because Tembe is quite a wet area. And that polecat is now, its friends have been seen twice now. And Kathy, forget mace. Maybe we should carry a skunk with us. Yes, Kathy, the trouble with carrying a skunk with you is that it may mistake you for a foe rather than a friend. If you know somebody who's extremely good at training skunks, then yes, I would suggest carrying a skunk under your arm if you happen to be walking in a sort of dodgy downtown place like Johannesburg, perhaps. Then a skunk under the arm may be quite effective. However, if you are not convinced that the skunk is very well trained, yeah, I wouldn't suggest it.
No,
Trish?
I think I tend to agree with you, but
Mm.
me being who I am, would also love if somebody tried,
Yes,
just
yes, I think it
just
would
so
be.
I could have, some kind of experiment. That would be great.
Mm. Yes, it would. Kathy, you're being very amusing this afternoon. You say, do striped polecats pole dance?
Oh, I'm sure they do with an outfit like that. I'm sure they
Yes,
do.
quite. That's very saucy, Kathy. Very saucy indeed. Somebody called Unknown Name says Google says polecats are called kits. Males are called Hobbs and females are called Jills. Well, now that's a hell of a thing. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
really cool to know. So Google says young polecats are called kits, Males are called Hobbs and females are called Jills. I'll forget that in 10
Jill.
minutes, but I'm very pleased that you've told us. Thank you very much,
Jill and
unknown
Hob.
name. And then Cheese Please, you say striped polecats and striped weasels are both striped. How can one tell the difference between the two? Cheese Please, a striped polecat, as far as I'm aware, is a different shape from a striped weasel. It's a shorter, more compact animal than a striped weasel. I have never seen a striped weasel, and so I'm talking purely off the top of my head. Have you ever seen a striped weasel, Trishana?
I have not, but I did go through a weasel obsession phase when I was younger. Seems
Who does
strange, but
that?
I did.
Yeah,
I do that because
yes, unlike
I
me.
just enjoyed the fact that they looked like they needed an additional pair of legs in between their legs,
Yes,
but they didn't
the
have it. So
limousine
it was like
of animals.
exactly. So it was like an inchworm, but a
Yes.
mammal. So I was a little obsessed with it for a little while. But definitely the way the body plan or the body shape is very different, and the way they move is quite different as well.
Mm. Cool. Thank you for that. TJ's widget, are they related to mongoose? In the same way that they're related to cats, probably slightly more closely related to mongoose than to cats and dogs, but different family. So mongoose
Yep.
are part of the Herpestidae and so slightly different family. Quickly, Leela May, before we move on to the next clip, will alligators go after elephants when they're close by drinking from the edge? Leela May, first of all, it's very unlikely that you're going to find an alligator and an elephant in the same place on account of the fact that, other than in zoos, they do not occur in the same continent. They occur on either side of the Atlantic pond. And so, with crocodiles, yes, it is possible that a crocodile might go for a very small elephant on the side of a waterhole, but a very big elephant, it would be very unlikely and possibly very unwise. But alligators, remember, live in the Americas, and crocodiles live in Africa. I'm not sure how many live in Asia anymore, but they certainly relatives live in Australia. In fact, the biggest crocodiles, I think, are the saltwater crocodiles of Australia, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Trish?
you'd be right, mate. You'd be right.
You'd be right. Okay. Don't go swimming north of Australia unless you are very sure there are no crocodiles lurking around. Could end badly for you. Okay. Let's move on to our next clip. There it is. Leela May, I should have waited. There's the crocodile. No, I'm talking rubbish. That's an elephant, actually. And
Didn't even catch it when you said it.
no, there is no crocodile, but what we do have there are two red-knobbed coots. Those are the black birds, red-knobbed coots. The one next to the elephant, anyway. You can actually see them all. That's the red-knobbed coot, yes. Oh, and it is now a running red-knobbed coot. The elephant has taken a dislike to the red-knobbed coot, which I think is quite unkind of the elephant, really. Now, they will do
But
this.
no,
They don't really like to
yeah.
share water. It's interesting that they don't like to share it with red-knobbed coots in the same way that they don't like to share water with... there's more than just a red-knobbed coot there. There's a red-knobbed coot swimming towards the elephant, and there was a teal, I think a red-billed teal, swimming left out of picture. There's a red-knobbed coot swimming towards the elephant, who is looking at it as though it may
Hmm.
be some kind of severe
Oh,
threat.
now you know when you see it once, it could be a coincidence,
Look at that.
but this is so
I
intentional.
know. You're right. Yeah. And so unkind. Well, that's really very unkind. No, I mean, I think that's just an elephant getting irritated. There is no other reason for it. The coots they're not known to eat elephants. They're not known to harass elephants. They're not known to drink so much water that the elephant will not get any water for himself. So I think it's just a bull elephant being irritated by the fact that there's a coot around.
But we've seen that so many times when elephants will just
Yeah,
get irritated at the most random little unthreatening animal near it,
yeah,
especially young bulls.
yeah, especially young bulls. I'm just going to try and play you the call of the coot because it's quite an interesting little call. And we could hear it in the background there, but here he is again. Let me turn the volume up.
Bless you.
I had a girlfriend with a singing voice like that once. Thankfully, she didn't sing too much.
Well, I bet
Okay.
if she was sitting near the elephant, it might have sprayed her with water too.
Yes. Yes. Quite. Yes. A good, good point. Unknown name. You say now we know where where the social term bully comes from. Yes. Well, that was certainly very bullyish behaviour and unnecessary. The coot, like I say, was of no threat to the poor, to the elephant, not poor elephant, the poor coot. Let us move on to our final clip now. Ah, wow. Okay, now this is very odd. That is a water thickney,
Yeah.
and it is chasing a poor amphibian, and now trying to murder
Ooh,
it. And the amphibian has
it had it
escaped.
in. It had it between the legs at one point. It looked very
Yeah,
painful.
this is a very unpleasant evening for that amphibian. Oh, oh, poor little froggy. Come on, frog. How on earth you've got this far from the water? Maybe just sit still. Oh, goodness gracious.
Ooh.
That's so unpleasant. It's so cruel. Losing its will to live now, I think.
Mm. I mean, it also would have been quite injured by being flung around like that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
look, it's twisting its body as it's in the beak of the thick knees, and that's going to
Yeah,
really hurt it
yeah.
as well.
Oh, yeah. I think what's quite interesting here is that the thick-knees diet does not normally consist of amphibians. I mean, if you look at the size of that frog compared with the size of the thick-knees beak, head, neck, I mean, it's enormous. And I wonder, oh, yeah, that doesn't look good. Now it's being stabbed to death. The thick-knee
Ooh,
obviously doesn't have, it doesn't have a beak that would be able to tear up the frog like a raptor's beak. And so it would need to really kind of almost externally chew that frog. In other words, bash it to the extent that it could swallow it whole. And whether it did or not, there I'm not sure. But that's an unusually sized bit of prey for a water thickney, which would be mostly after invertebrates. But I think that what's an interesting point here is that a lot of mammals and birds, and probably reptiles as well, when we call them carnivores, we mean they're carnivores, but often they will simply go for anything meaty that they can overpower. And I remember reading that once about the Birchall's kukul, and some, the whatever text I was reading said that they will eat anything that they can overpower. And I think that applies basically to most things that eat meat.
yeah. I remember
Mm.
seeing a thick knee in the evening taking a. It looked like a blind snake, but a
Okay.
significantly sized one.
Mm.
It was awful. It was
Did it
down the
swallow it?
throat, and then it
Oh.
did swallow it eventually, but
Mm.
it had not killed the snake. So the snake was
Mm.
slithering out each time it tried to swallow it. It was
Oh.
very
Oh,
intense.
that is horrid. Oh, gosh. Rolling trouble, you said, tastes like chicken. Well, if you ever see a thick knee eating a chicken, then you've seen something that neither of us have. That would be even more bizarre than Trisha's blind snake trying to extract itself from the throat of a hungry thick knee. All right, everybody. Thank you very, very much for joining us for Wild Moments, powered by explore.org. It's been lovely chatting to all of you. Thank you for your questions and comments. I hope that you will join us again at the same time, in the same place next week. I won't be here. I'll be in Kenya looking for a black leopard.
Oh, aren't you lucky?
I am very lucky, and hopefully I will come back with some pictures of said black leopard. Bye-bye, Trish, and
Yes.
bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, James. Bye, everybody.